welcome to the Tech Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, BJ Hamaker, the CMO of Nucleus. Tech Therapy is here to save you from busy work so you can focus on what's fulfilling and profitable. Stick around to the end of the show. We'll reveal how you can be our next guest in around 20 minutes. Let's go.
All right.
All right. Hey, it is all right. We've got two confirmations. Jesse, do you think it is also all right?
I do think it is also all right. Yes.
All right. Fantastic. So we're here with Jesse from Bento. And just before this episode, we were talking code with him. We'll try and keep it simple during the episode. We're just kind of fascinated with what he's got going on. So Jesse, I'd love to ask you, what does Bento do?
Yeah, sure. So I run Bento. It's an email marketing and marketing automation product, similar to I guess the most popular one would be like MailChimp and Klaviyo in the e-commerce space. So yeah, people sign up, they track their users, track what they're buying, and then we send a lot of messages, based on those reactions. I've been building it by myself with contractors for the past 3 years. And then now it's really just me with a really small team. I got a guy called Ash who helps me with support, a guy called John who helps me with sales, and then all my customers that I kind of serve.
That's awesome. Was it pretty difficult to get it off the ground, especially? Well, I mean, obviously the idea comes from, there are all these CRMs out there, different marketing automation software. So they all have pros and cons. So there's always a reason to make something else if there's a gap to fill. But what was your thought process there? Let me ask that one.
Well, so prior to building Bento, I was like a marketing consultant and I had an agency. And so I was already really familiar with using a lot of these tools, Drip, Active Campaign, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, they always bothered me, but also I didn't know how complex building something like this would be. So at one point in time, I was like, well, what if I tried to build my own solution to these tools in my way and use my opinions to tackle these problems? Mm-hmm. And it takes a really long time. I taught myself, I had always been into code, did computer stuff in high school, didn't go to university, and was knew enough code that a marketer needs to know. So a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of HTML, some CSS to make your opt-in forms not look horrendous. But then started to get more curious, specifically in Rails and learning a little bit more backend. And so I don't know, from 2015 onwards for a few years, was just teaching myself to code. Then had the idea to work on Bento, but didn't really have the domain modeling expertise at all. Didn't really know how to, just mock stuff up. And so I hired a guy called Andrew Culver. He was a senior, probably one of the best Rails developers that I know, to basically build the first version with me, and took the cash from my agency, used that, gave it to Andrew to help build Bento. And then that's kind of how stuff got started. And then over time, I just took more and more responsibility as I kind of shadowed him on the builds. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's an interesting path. I think very often when you're launching an application and you're doing it with outsourced help or partners, then normally you don't take on their work. Normally if it's going to be successful, you kind of just keep delegating that stuff. It must have been fun to kind of learn some of those skills.
Yeah. Well, I think my take's always been, I didn't go to university, so I didn't have any, college debt or anything. So for me, just taking money from the agency and paying for a pro to teach me how to code was kind of like doing a comp sci degree or something like that. But I got a business out of it, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And the
job placement.
Yeah, exactly. And so it took a long time to get off the ground, right? And I still had an agency. I think I got up to 30-ish employees running that remotely. And so I was still really, really busy, and it was just part-time tinkering. And it wasn't really until last year when I exited that agency in June that I properly moved full-time into Bento. And at that point, stuff started to kind of really pick up when it got full-time focus. And then, now it's kind of all that I do. Yeah.
Amazing. So how has it grown in the past few years? I see there's a ticker on the site that says it's been up for 1,612 days or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of the growth is happening in like the last kind of through the pandemic. A lot of that was through, I think, leaning into a couple of markets. So I think what I've come to learn over time is that like success in SaaS is often just being in a market that flows with customers. And the marketing automation market and email marketing, there's new people that need that software every single day, like tens of thousands of customers.
Yep.
And so for me to build a moderately successful business, I only need like the smallest slither of that flow, right? and that's just people that like what I do and they see what I do and they may, you know, have some dissatisfaction with like MailChimp or Drip or Klaviyo, and they're like, this Jesse guy. Oh, you go.
I've definitely had dissatisfaction with MailChimp and ActiveCampaign and Infusionsoft and lots of the other big ones.
Yeah, so someone like you, Pace, would like you may talk to someone like me, and you're like, all right, like Jesse says he can do this stuff. I'm gonna just take it for a trial, and then you try it, and hopefully I deliver on the product. And then at that point, you go, all right, I'll switch from AC and stuff, and then you make that a week sprint, and you get it done. And that's how we get most of our customers, right?
A lot of your competitors are riding on the fact that they're not frustrating enough for people to leave. That's like
basically,
yeah, that's basically it. Like all the MailChimp campaigns that I've run, all the ActiveCampaign, like, well, most of those are dead ones that I take over or something like that. People are like, can you export my thing and just put it in something that doesn't suck, you know? So having you know, a new system that's like up to date, that's not running on legacy code, that has, you know, just a like a fresh take, would just probably be just tremendously refreshing for thousands of marketers out there.
I hope so.
You shared this very cool video mapping out the conversion data as a graph. This was about a month ago. It looks like
there's a lot of like features in there, and I think the one that you're referring to is just like opinionated stuff that I just built just for fun, right? Like we've got all this great data, and I think the graph that you're referring to is one where in Bento, one of my issues with email marketing software in general is they over attribute success. So say you send a broadcast out and it's Black Friday, right? And you're also running ads and you're doing a whole bunch of other promotions. Often the email marketing tool will just claim every single sale. That's often not true. And then some email platforms will associate a sale to multiple emails as well. And I've always disliked that because I think it's dishonest. And so in Bento, we built our own attribution modeling, and then to back it up, we now show this full graph which shows all your orders and all the paths customers took to convert. And you can say, hey, show me Pace's journey to a sale. You click it and all these nodes light up and you're like, all right, cool, I know Bento's actually tracking this accurately.
Man,
there's stuff like that.
Teasing that apart is just
so tricky. Screenshot of this.
Say what, Pace?
Can I share the screenshot of what you just talked about? It's on your Twitter. I mean, it's this one here. It's this one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like looking over there. So if anyone's just listening, it's like usually when you look at marketing software, you just see like a linear graph, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3. But in Bento, we represent it as this massive node graph showing these really chaotic paths, because most users don't just buy off, you know, something linear. They actually take very insane paths to purchase, and being able to view that individually, I think, is quite empowering as a marketer, because you're like, oh wow, this data is really messy. And I think when you get
it really
that
is.
granular,
I mean, the only other like reasonably successful attribution modeling that I've seen is done by Google, and I did the Japanese SEO for a $2 billion company for 2 years, and our attribution modeling was just a wreck, because it didn't feel like there was any proof to it, where it was like, are we going to trust this or are we not going to trust this? Like, we either just have to, you know what I mean? Just say, all right, Google, you must be right. Or, you know what? That doesn't feel correct. So I just am going to ignore the whole thing. So being able
the
to
data is
go look
anonymized, right? Like you can't, you see like 10 conversions, but you can't click into it, which is like the most annoying part. So you do just have to trust those platforms. And I guess with Bento, I hated that. So I was like, let's just click into it and show it. And if we're wrong, let's get challenged. And so then people do say, hey, I don't like how that was attributed, and then I fix it. So it's like being held accountable as a marketer, which is scary, but you want to deliver a good product.
That stuff can get complicated. We're working with a company that serves mom and pop flower shops, and what they do, for the pandemic, a lot of those shops needed to sell online, and so they have attribution problems, because if they run this promotion for a holiday, they say, oh, all the sales for the past 30 days came from that holiday. And or even worse, like, it's not necessarily anonymous. They know who their buyers are, but they might not be able to track them to a specific email campaign, because they clicked the link from the campaign, or they copied it and pasted it, or they opened it and they closed it and they opened it later. So that type of stuff is tricky. But I'm very curious about getting a more deep dive into this too.
Yeah, sure. There's also this other kind of interesting incentive in marketing, which is that the stats often favor the marketers. So an email marketer, when email stats are heavily inflated, and especially if they're getting paid on like a rev share, let's say, that the stats do benefit the email marketer. And so this is kind of why stuff doesn't really change. Same on the ad platforms. It makes sense. Facebook overinflate sales. It makes sense that Google overinflates the sales, because they've got ad platforms that they have to justify it. And so what we've found as well, which is incredibly bizarre, in Bento, you can like search for specific ads and then see the exact people that purchased. People do like mini audits. So they'll run 2 Facebook ad campaigns. Let's say you got 2 ad groups, and one will say 6 sales, one will say 0. And then when you look in Bento, it's actually flipped or just completely different. And you're like, all right, well, the first one actually only got 2 sales instead of 6. And then the other one got 4. And so if you're running your stats in Facebook and you're basing it off that, you may kill the underperforming ad, but that one actually may be performing better. And so there's this kind of risk stuff that people don't really know. And another point, it's my last point, I'll get off the rant, but everything's reported in like a 7 to 30 day window.
Right.
And so something that we're trying to encourage in Bento, we've got this one graph where you can search for an ad, and this graph attributes sales to the date where the person was created. So say in January, you're running $1,000 of ad spend. This is, let's say for a SaaS company, you're running $1,000 of ad spend. You get a whole bunch of signups, but I know for Bento, people take 6 months to sign up. I get people that were exposed to us from like a Twitter ad a year ago, right?
Yeah.
And
oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so when you look in, and when you go to August, right? So 6 months down the line, this graph will actually show, hey, all the sales that came through over that time are attributed to the date where the person was first created. So when you look back in time, you can go, all right, well, we spent $1,000 in ads. When we looked in January for that month, it says we were unprofitable. But when I re-review that month in 6 months, we made 10 grand. All right.
So it's the full lifetime customer value considered. Yep.
So now we go, hey, let's spend more money and stop being afraid to do so, because we've now got some confidence. So a lot of advertising I see is risk tolerance. A lot of very large, let's say mobile app companies, all their dev teams are doing are like building software to help them with risk analysis, especially those like app install companies. They're like modeling for whales. They're doing all this stuff, and I'm trying to bring that to everyone else, but it's a hard problem.
So there's got to be, looking back, there's got to be a point of diminishing marginal returns, or maybe there doesn't. But I'm thinking the confidence that you receive, if you look back over 3 months, you'll have more confidence in the recent numbers if you look back 6 months instead. But looking back 9 months, I mean, if you can do it, you might as well do it. So I'm trying to figure like how far back would it make sense? But I guess
that's the question, right? That's the question, because if you have a 6 month tolerance of spend or a 12-month tolerance in spend, like it just depends what your outlook is for the business. So,
I am how consistent you were that whole time.
Yep. I'm bootstrapped. Everything's my money. So I probably only have a tolerance of like 3 months out, 4 months out. Now, if I was a heavily funded company, bugger it. I may have a window of 12 months, 24 months. Some enterprise companies have like multi-year time frames for payback periods, and they model it out.
Lots of companies, especially ones that are over 5 million a year, they're relying on debt every time they do any type of business expansion. So they can justify that, but they do have to, if they want to be smart, they want to do some metrics around the cost of the debt and the time to service the debt and how much that's going to affect their cash flow in the meantime, like you're thinking about. you could get some bad data just by not having enough sample, and try a bunch of different things. Even if you do look back 6-9 months, you might also find some bad signals, right?
Mhm.
Like you might overfit to some things that look like they were good, but it's because you use such a small sample size, your statistics, your percentages are through the roof, but they're really bad examples,
Yeah,
because
nailed it.
they're not consistent. Yeah, it's just this type of stuff. Just I love it so much.
Yeah,
There's
I can't get enough information, man. I
I
just
wonder
need
I
it.
wonder how many times you might have thought you found something that was like this game changer, statistic or variable or something, or for a specific customer, like these amazing stats where they were making 10 leads before and now they're making 1,000 leads. And yeah, I don't know, do you see those things from time to time?
I think what I do see is I see like behavioral changes in people. I think giving people software that has more information and more control, it can like seem overwhelming, but I think after people understand how stuff works, they're just a lot more empowered. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a real you guys will get this. So with cookie stuff, right? When people are
Yeah.
converting across multiple domains, now with all the cookie changes in the browser, cookies are essentially wiped when people are jumping across domains. And so, and specifically when the domains aren't the same kind of core domain, right? And you're not doing anything to pass stuff through.
Right.
So what my customers learned through having access to the data is they would log into their website, well, they'll go to their website, they'll opt in on domain one. Then they would click a button and it would go to like app.example.com. So they'll go to the next one. And they'll realize in Bento, there'd be two visitors created. So there'd be the one that was identified. And now there's this new anonymous one because we actually show anonymous.
Yeah.
But it's the same user, it's the same device. And then it like kind of clicks. They're like, oh, wait, like this cookie stuff is impacting, is like something is going on here. And then they ask the question. And then I can walk them through the solutions and how to consolidate profiles and how to merge stuff together.
There's some data loss if they can't have the same tracking on both sides.
Yeah. And so there are solutions to it, but they need to be shown the problem visually first. And then they go, what's going on in Google Analytics then? Because I'm not dealing with it there. What's going on in Facebook? I'm not dealing with it there. And then they like don't trust any of their data. And that's the eye-opening moment where they're like, wow, the internet's actually like super broken. And but now I'm empowered to try and fix stuff and get stuff a little bit more accurate. So
that's fascinating. I mean, all day I was working on this one design for an application and really digging into like login systems and the benefits of passwordless, systems. You don't have to deal with a forgot password. You don't have to try to get people to memorize some, esoteric system of rules. And that can be very beneficial. Benefits, they have to email confirm, or they have to, phone confirm. And it's also just faster and easier for them to do that. They don't have to remember anything. So, there's all kinds of things like that. And I wonder what some of the impacts of these things, like the cookies changes and the move towards passwordless, more biometric, confirmations, those are having on the marketing automation.
On like the ad side, I think all the recent changes are actually screwing up a lot of SMBs and businesses. Like ad spends are down across the board. People's performance is just getting hampered. I've got like a lot of visibility on campaigns, and I talk to customers all the time that are spending like 500K a month on ads, and they're hurting, man. Like stuff's hard. Stuff's really, really hard. On the marketing automation side, like less so. Like we're less impacted by it because when someone clicks on an email, we can force a device to know who that person is and track them from there. So we're okay. But on the ad side, stuff's getting kind of gnarly. So I don't know. We'll just see how it goes.
It seems like almost you'd be able to find out so much more about best practices by looking at the high level data and comparing against, accounts against each other. But I don't hear a whole lot about, MailChimp and a lot of companies publishing, recommendations to say, if you do this, it's going to hurt your ads. If you do this, it's going to hurt your emails.
So on that, like we have a Discord where we like now actually, that's how we actually service our customers. So scaling this business, something that I wanted to do. I live in Japan. I have a friend who teaches, has a Japanese language software company here. And he's got thousands of people in his Discord, and I just saw that. It was a consumer app, right? When I
Could
saw that, I
that
was like,
possibly be Native Shark?
it is native. Yeah. It's native shot. I've got you guys are
Yeah, we
connected to
thought
them.
about
Yeah,
that the other
Caleb,
day. It's
Yeah.
such a-
Caleb was
such
our
a
first episode of an
Oh,
interview.
what a
Okay.
beautiful design.
It's cool, right?
Their application. Very
Love
nice.
it.
Those guys nail it. So like Caleb, I was talking to Caleb and I just saw his like Discord community and I was like, this is a cool way to run like support. But I was like, I haven't really seen that in a B2B other than like kind of crypto stuff. And I was like, maybe a good fit. But I was like, I'm just gonna try it out for my small little B2B business. And it's been really impactful. I think like when people move to a marketing automation solution, they're actually like committing to doing more marketing. Like that's the job that they're doing and they've got tasks to do. And I think not being alone in that task and being able to like ping our Discord and be like, hey, like I'm doing this, I'm confused. People are more likely to do that, which reduces churn, builds loyalty to the software. They build affinity to us, right? And they really like us as software makers.
I really do feel closer to someone if I'm in that kind of environment with them. I feel like I'm with them, even though they may be logged off, and yet, their icon's right there. I feel like, we're close.
It can be one of the worst things for business just to have to send a message and not know if you're waiting a day or a week. Or anything. Because then, then you'll forget about the problem and then it'll resurface next week when it becomes a problem again. And then you'll just send another message and you never actually get anything done. And it's those lessons unlearned, right? Those comparisons between accounts, that macro data that you're missing out on by not improving your system because somebody didn't tell you fast enough. And it makes a big difference.
We when I migrate people over, like the number one thing that I see in like ActiveCampaign, Klaviyo accounts is like automation is not even on. Like they'll be paying $400-$500 a month. And 4 years ago, they wanted to set these things up. So they've got all these drafts and then they got stuck and then they just didn't turn it on. And so then they just use it for email.
Essentially an email list. That's it. It's the same.
Yeah, they contact once a quarter.
That's it.
Yeah. And so it's nice when they come in, they're like, all right, I'm going to get this marketing stuff under wraps. And plus I'm going to like talk to you, ask for advice. And then they get confidence to change stuff on and they actually have an impact. And doing that on Discord, kudos to Caleb, has been really impactful and weird. People are so much like nicer when they find bugs or they find issues saying like, hey, I found this thing, like, can you go check it out? Whereas
because
when
they're
I was doing
there
stuff
with you, of course they're going to be polite.
They have something to lose by just as they would by sitting down in your store. They'd have something to lose by not being good about it.
Totally. And when I used to get tickets on support, people were aggressive at times, right? Like just the wording. It emails quite like not from the marketing perspective, but from the support perspective, they're quite confrontational. Like even yesterday, I got an email from a customer subscriber who was sending me this massive, lengthy, like almost legal message saying like, I never subscribed to this list, like blah, blah, blah. I'm going to, go after you. And then then he followed up on Twitter. So a social medium, right? And I just chatted to him casually on Twitter through my like business profile. And it turned out he actually did buy from this customer like 4 years ago. He just forgot about it, right? So on email, he's sending me all these legal messages. On Twitter, social, he's like talking to me like a human. And I'm like, hey, brother, can you just check your emails? Are you sure you didn't buy from them? Like, I think they're not a spammer. And then he's like, oh yes, sorry about that. So the medium's kind of interesting from a support mechanism and it's allowed me to just keep stuff small. Yeah.
Definitely.
So you've got some advantages that we've already discussed. You've got, clean, fresh code. It's not 15 years old with a bunch of layers kludged on top of it. You've got a more personable approach to customer communications, and you're pulling in more data from more points and correlating them in a way that's not black box to the way that Google attribution model is. But I mean, is there something else that you would say is one of those, like you say, your strongest point maybe, or would you feel like there's something else to it that's maybe your top thing that you're doing better than everybody else?
It's a good question.
I didn't mean for it to be a paragraph.
No. I think it's the support stuff, right? Like I think it's people people these days want more than just good software. I think good software is the benchmark. So, and it really took until last year that Bento reached my taste in software, which was the longest thing. I had a certain taste bar, and it wasn't hitting that until last year. And then last year it hit it, and that gave me the confidence to sell. That gave me the confidence to support better, et cetera, et cetera. But then after that, after you are at feature parity to your competitors, it's got to be the service part. I think in SaaS, everyone forgets the service part in SaaS, and I think it's almost the most critical part in it. And I think more businesses, because once someone gets onto Bento, they really need to be served to get the most out. And then once they've got the most out of it, they stick and they don't churn. So yeah, does that answer the question?
A lot of sense to me. Yeah, because when you were talking about, your customer service and the way I was talking about how that feels like you're close, I just imagined in my head, like, if I was assigned a representative from MailChimp, I'd just feel like they were hired 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if even asking them a question will yield any benefit. And it's going to be in that kind of ugly monospace text format that inspires animosity, like we were talking about. So being able to actually talk to the man behind the thing, you being able to talk to somebody who knows every layer of it, that's fantastic. But even if I just felt like I was talking to if you have some customer service people, I don't know if you do, if I was talking to one of them, you'd be right there, and having that kind of small organization kind of feel, it's just really homey. It's almost like, the butcher, like.
Yes. So that, nailed it. So like, I remember there's a guy called Peldy who runs Balsamic, the UI tool.
Yeah, with the Q, the wireframes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember he has this. He used to have this thing on the about page, which was, I think, the position was something like your corner bistro on the internet or something like that. It like that was the framing, and I just love that. Like I love that notion. And I think, using your MailChimp example is like that. They just got bought by Intuit. Like they give off very weird vibes now. It used to be like the bootstrap darling, but now they give off like corporate, owned by Intuit. People don't like Intuit. Like they just give off different vibes. So if MailChimp gave off more personable vibes, and instead of like a customer representative, it was like, I don't know, something a lot kinder than that, and was less corporate-y, and they had a community Discord and stuff where customers were helping each other, which happens in ours, and the founder was also in there helping people out, and engineers were in there, so if there was a scaling problem, engineers were answering. They may have more success, but I don't know. They sold for billions of dollars, so maybe that's success to them. So maybe they're okay.
That's true. You kind of just have to kiss it goodbye at that point sometimes. I think so. Yeah, I'm glad other people will be reaping the benefits of the idea at large, but the idea at small just feels good. I get like a little love spike when I have an experience like that.
I think so. And like we've got a lot of competitors, and a lot of them are funded and stuff, and I know I know a little bit about their business through gossip and all that, and they're not growing any faster than us. Like I think growth is like, it's word of mouth. There's probably like a little bit of SEO and distribution stuff in there, but in the marketing automation space, it's word of mouth is probably like the strongest part, and then solidifying yourself as a good partner to a lot of things. So we've got we're listed as a partner, as an example, as a partner to WP Fusion. So we integrate with WP Fusion, and Jack is like the most amazing guy. And as a result, when people ask for automation stuff, Jack sometimes sends me business, and sometimes they're pretty impactful leads for us. And so building relationships that way is good. Got like an integration now going with LearnDash that we're wrapping up. And the old GM of LearnDash, Chris Lemmer, has been one of the kindest guys to me. And so I've got a personal relationship with him. So again, it's like, I'm the bistro, Chris Lemmer's the butcher, like I'm trying to cultivate that online. And if you can do that, and it pays the bills, it pays for service, it pays for food on the table and stuff, it pays for my life in Japan, I'm happy. That's all that I really need at this point. Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to ask you about growth, but as far as just what are the plans for the next few years, just track that growth, continue to kind of do meta-analysis and improve your own marketing and integrations. But you're focusing more on the integrations and the service side.
Yeah,
too.
I,
Yeah,
I, I,
what does the next few years look like?
I just want to wake up in the morning and talk to, like, I got people like pinging me now. I want to talk to those customers. I want to write some code. I've got Japanese lessons a few times a week. I want to walk my dog. I just want to keep stuff pretty simple. I think, like, over time, I've realized that if I just sit down, do good work, and help people, then the business grows, and it grows at a pretty good clip. And if I overcomplicate that and get too ambitious, it just kind of, I don't know, screws me up a little bit. And last year, after I exited from the agency, that gave me kind of set me up. And so now I just want to pull everything back, like, to the day, right? I just want to do good work today and keep stuff simple, because, like, I don't want to let the financial goals kind of become too much of a big thing for me now.
I like that. I like that the answer is like, no. Not necessarily no, I'm not going to work for the next few years, but like, you don't have to overextend.
Well, I also don't think, like, I have, like, to a certain extent, you do have control over growth, but you've also got to make sure growth is deliberate, because, like, different cash, the way cash comes in whispers different things to you. This is something that, like, I've repeated a lot to quite a lot of friends, right? Like, money from an agent. Yeah. Money from an agency is different to money from consulting, is different to services, different to productized services, different to SaaS. And to the same extent, if I was to go hard on, I don't know, for example, I'm trying to do an integration with, like, 3D Cart. If you guys remember, it's like like the MySpace of e-commerce platforms.
We're actually working with them a little, or we had a past client that worked with them. Yeah.
I've been around for a long time and I've never heard of it, but I've just missed it.
Yeah, you must have. 3D Cart. Yeah.
3D. Is this AmeriCommerce is with them, right? I believe. Yeah, I think they bought them. Yeah, so we're working with one of the groups that has one of their templates.
So with 3D Cart, now known as, like, Shift for Shop, I was like, I'm trying to do an integration for one customer to get them on, but now I kind of want to give up, because, like, there's a lot of aesthetic things about that platform and the type of customers on that platform that, other than this guy who seems really, really great, like, I don't want to do a deep integration, because I don't want a lot of those customers coming in, because it seems like they might have, like, a lot of problems. And so if I was obsessed with growth, it'd be like, bugger it, I'm going to integrate with, like, everything under the sun. But I think now I'm trying to look for good communities to integrate with, and mostly them.
There are some really, really good communities in the React space. ClickUp is certainly really deep in that. A bunch of other of the project management tools are really deep in there, and that would be a good serviceable area, because I would
Jacob
say
Jacob from Native Shark wrote our React library.
Ah, yes, nice. Yeah,
I think we're gonna keep hearing his name. It's a pretty clever guy.
Yeah,
yeah, he is very smart.
Marketing automation is one of the areas where we've been deficient consistently, and I think we need to, there are just certain aspects. So I think reaching out to the fastest growing people in various spaces would be the best way to go. But ClickUp is certainly one of the ones that they will go out of their way to integrate with you, I would say.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So we have had some pretty good conversation so far. I feel like I have a handle on what you're doing, and I've been trying to make sure we don't go too deep on the tech, although I have to admit I geek out on all things marketing. It makes me so happy to hear, that, like, where you go. One question that I had earlier that I didn't ask is, do you have a WordPress plugin? Is that something you've done? You do?
Yeah. So we've got WordPress. It extends to WooCommerce, and then I've got a current pull request for LearnDash that's in beta. Yeah.
LearnDash is the big course management system for WordPress.
Yeah.
Cool. And I was noticing also your pricing model. I actually wanted to make a comment about that, because I would say relatively few businesses are doing it that way, where it's very there's the low static, flat barrier to entry. The middle tier is actually a scaling tier, and then there's like the custom auction above that, or at least that's what I see on the pricing page now.
So
But
I can tell you the thought behind it. So when I was using other tools, the thing that always annoyed me was the leap in pricing tiers. So you'd hit, 10,001 and it'll be like, oh, cool, you now qualify up to 30,000. You're like, all right, well, come on. I'm not going to hit there for a while. Give me a break. But then you're paying for all that buffer.
yeah,
And so for me, I was like, I just want to do metered. So you still build per contact, but you'll build metered. So if I think currently it's 1 cent. I want to raise it soon, but I think it's currently 1 cent per contact. So it's like if you've got 10,000, it's $100. If you have 10,001, it's 101 cent or something. So that's how we do it. It's nice.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, no, I think that's a solid model. Have a really decent floor and very, very comfortable.
It's also less billing code. That's also another thing. Like I just wanted less billing code, right? I just got to run.
You don't want to write a complex billing algorithm.
Yeah, I think I got there. It's like we don't do feature gating either. You just get everything. It's because I didn't want to write conditionals. I just didn't want to write and I didn't want to do a whole bunch of complex role stuff. And this user only has access to X, Y, Z. Like that's way too complex. And then the billing stuff, all I gotta do is ping Stripe and go, hey, they've only got 10,000, and then we'll just calculate it all and then bill them accordingly. So simplicity, I think, is kind of nice scaling. The other thing as well, which is good about that, is every day I wake up and I have growth because everyone's accounts are growing every single day. And so I'm not really waiting for those leaps to happen. I just kind of get them.
I like that. You're also not trying to sell towards a leap. You don't need to promote this next tier all the time. Yep. And then they're not struggling against the decision of, do we upgrade and then we're going to spend, we're going to go from $9 per user to $30 per user for our 15 users, and then that's like this huge thing. And then whenever they got to cut back, they're like, can we just downgrade, please? Yeah. So
and then on the downgrading stuff, it's kind of interesting. Like, I try and avoid people like downgrading, but a lot of it, like people have really unique use cases. Like they may have a very large user base, but they only email a portion of them. And practically data is really cheap. We're talking about, data rows in Postgres, like they're more or less free. And so I'll have customers reach out, and then sometimes I'll just tweak the pricing algo to work out who we calculate for, and then just so it's all fair, right? Like they may have 100,000 users, but they only really realistically market to 20,000 of them, but they want all the data in there just sake. I'll do something custom for them just to help them out.
So anybody who has a business where they're doing some digital marketing, which would make it possible for, attribution, which would make it possible for them to track the effectiveness of their marketing, any of them should consider you as an option.
Yeah, or anyone that does marketing automation. So marketing automation, marketing tracking. Our kind of goal is just to do anything under that marketing umbrella other than run ads. You can kind of get it all done in Bento versus stitching like 4 or 5 products together. Yeah.
Nice.
And where can people go and order that service?
Bento now, BENTONOW.com, or they can follow us on Twitter. We've got Bento, BENTO on Twitter. And then I think my personal profile
on Twitter, you're at Bento.
Yeah. We got the handle.
You got in like the day that Twitter opened?
Nah, secret. we got the handle.
That's fine.
we got the handle.
I'm happy for you. Enough said. All right. Well, Jesse, congratulations on launching a successful company, doing it right over the course of years, and doing something that like just would be an absolute nightmare for me and saves me headache. If I think about using this, for some of my clients in the future, it just seems like it's going to be a lot smoother. So I hope a lot more people can experience that with you.
Yeah, cool. And we'll look after everyone that comes our way. We always do.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. DJ Hamaker here. Thanks for listening to the Tech Therapy Podcast. If you're a successful business owner and would like to be a guest on the show, please visit techtherapypodcast.com. If you got something out of this interview, would you share this link on social media or a screenshot or just your comments and include the hashtag TechTherapyPodcast? If you know someone who would be a great guest, tag them on social media and let them know about the show. And remember to use our hashtag TechTherapyPodcast. I love seeing your posts and your guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new content, so please make sure you don't miss anything by hitting subscribe. Your thumbs up, your ratings, your reviews, your comments, they go a long way to promote the show in the algorithms. So please go ahead and, give us a nice comment or review the podcast. If you want to know more, please go to techtherapypodcast.com or follow the show on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We're on Instagram, we're at Tech Therapy Podcast. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.